This week, on an extra special live edition of Masters in Business, I'm at the Audrain Newport Concours d'Elegance, and my conversation is with Wilhelm Schmid. He is the CEO of Lange Sohne, one of the finest watch companies in the world. They're located in Glashütte, Germany. Our conversation talked about everything from collectible timepieces to collectible cars. I found it fascinating, and I think you will also. With no further ado, my discussion with a Lange Sohne's Wilhelm Schmid. Wilhelm Schmid, welcome to Bloomberg.
Thank you so much, Barry.
Thank you so much for this, for hosting this event and participating in our conversation. I have so many things to talk to you about, but I have to start with this prestigious concourse in this spectacular setting on what could be the nicest day of the year. What is the connection between classic cars and fine mechanical timepieces?
Yeah. Some mean people say me because I like cars and watches and cars, but I think it's of course more than that. Watchmaking that's what we emphasize on, and 90% of our energy will go into watchmaking. That's our home turf. But I believe as a global brand, you also need to find a world that is focused on something else, but where you have sort of a common ground that you can walk on. And about 14 years ago, we were looking for a platform where we can show the brand and we can bring customers to entertain. And if you look at these cars, let's start with the cars and look at the word concours of elegance. So we're not in vintage cars or racing. It's about concours of elegance. It's about beauty, it's about heritage, it's about craftsmanship, it's about design. And if you look onto the pillars on which our brand rests, it is exactly, it's history, heritage, it's design, and it's of course the craftsmanship. And trust me, these cars that you see here, as they were built by proper craftsmen, and even today without proper craftsmen, you will not keep them on the road.
And I know that you studied as an engineer and mechanic before eventually moving over to watches. Obviously, the design ethos of some of these cars, they're just so phenomenal and spectacular. What sort of inspiration do you, running a fine watchmaker, take from the designs of these cars?
I don't think you can immediately take something from that world into our world. But if you look at these cars, well, the first thing that comes to mind is some of them are 50, 60, 80, 100 years old. And we look at them today and they still fascinate us. So obviously that design survived all the different fashion, change of taste, odds of time. They are here today and they're as attractive as they were probably back then when they were brand new. If you look at specifically the purpose-built car, the race cars, they were built for only one purpose, and that's what they were perfect in. And I think in watches, you also have to identify what is it that you emphasize on, and then don't compromise too much on it. Because if you start making big compromises, you end up with something which is, a little bit of everything, but nothing particularly really good. So I think that's what you can take from cars into watches, identify the purpose, and then everything should direct to achieve that, if I call it the North Star, that purpose. And for watches, it's exactly the same.
So there's a lovely white Mercedes Gullwing out there with a red interior, and I once heard someone ask you to compare a Lange to a car, and you thought about it and said the Gullwing because the design was purposeful from start to finish. Tell us what you mean by purposeful in either watch or car design.
Well, if you go back and think about the mid-50s in Germany, I wasn't born there. I'm not that old, but I saw pictures. I saw pictures of the Autobahn. I saw the cars on the road back then, And then think about very suddenly something like the Gullwing appears. I mean, an alien could have landed and caused the same result.
Tubular frame,
racing, and 210
derived.
horsepower, do 235 kilometers an hour high speed. You know why they did the doors?
Because you couldn't have a door over that frame
Exactly.
for the body.
Well, the seals were too wide.
Right.
So they just came up with the doors. And you know what they did at Le Mans? They wanted to permit that because in the book it didn't say explicitly it's not allowed, but Neubauer got
And they did very well at Le Mans.
Absolutely they did. Absolutely they did. No, but I think the car was made for one purpose. And that was winning races in the first place. And paving the way for Mercedes internationally to be back where they wanted to be, and that is very high up. Don't forget the price of these cars. I mean, you could probably bought streets for the same price, not houses, streets in the mid-50s.
Arguably the first supercar ever made. So you're a connoisseur of vintage cars. I know you have a couple of Porsches. Tell us what else you like in classic automobiles.
I do like what I call the oddballs. The Porsches that I have are actually the exceptions because everybody knows what a 911 is, and probably many people know what a 356 is. So that's, I don't say utility, but these cars are, the 356 is my Swiss pocket knife.
Right.
Because, you can go on a tour with it, which I take that car a lot. And if the weather is nice, you just open the roof and it takes you 30 seconds. And if the rain comes, it takes you 30 seconds to bring the roof back on. It is not as watertight as you think it is, I have to say. There's still a lot of water coming through, but at least you're roughly protected against the environment. And the 911 is the car that I never wanted and I will never sell. It's just a fantastic driving car. But the other cars that I have are more for people that really know about cars. If I share somebody, I have a Fraser Nash, most people wouldn't even know what that is. And that's not a surprise because I think they built about 600 cars pre-war and then about 83 post-war. So the likelihood that you know it, if you're not into the hobby, is very high.
So I keep meeting people here, chatting about cars, chatting about watches. When I was doing a little research on you, it turns out that you really know the firm's clients, both customers and collectors. What do you do at an event like this? How much time do you spend with some of the Lange collectors and people who are so enthusiastic about the brand?
I would say 90%.
Really?
If I'm not in interviews with you, then I'm out there and talking to our customers. That's the most important for us because at the end, we mustn't forget all that is not paid by Lange Sohne. This is paid by our customers.
So there's a quote of yours I really enjoyed. We want to surprise, inspire, and enchant our clients with an unprecedented imagination and ingenuity. How do you go from those lofty goals to turning it into a mechanical timepiece?
Yeah, well, first of all, it takes strict discipline. The moment you do things that are not in line with who you are, you may surprise people, but probably not positively, and for sure eventually will dilute your brand equity. So the first thing is you have to apply discipline. That's why we have 6 different watch families, and we have sort of a horizon of 7 years, and we want to apply each watch family at least once, let's say within 24 months rolling. So that's sort of the engineering structure, all attempts. That doesn't answer your question, I know. Staying traditional but thinking out of the box, because our value set is very traditional, but our thinking is often very much out of the box. I give you a good example. The tourbillon has been invented by Breguet, I think about 280 years back or so, something like this. It was there to enhance the accuracy of a watch by eliminating the mistake that happened through gravity, basically.
In mostly pocket watches, which were always facing downwards.
And of course, it's a very delicate mechanism. It does do the job because think about you put your watch on the desk next to your bed. So at least for 10 hours it is exposed to gravity without moving. Anyhow, I want to argue the necessity of a tourbillon. What we found very interesting is that it was there to enhance the accuracy, but it was impossible to set time correctly. Because if you do that with a running second, it is pure luck that you hit exactly the point. So we were the first in 2009 to come up with a mechanism that makes the tourbillon stop. So the second hand comes to a stop and you can adjust the time properly. We then went one step further with the 1815 tourbillon, where you not only stop the moment you pull the crown, that second hand goes to zero, which is the best way to adjust your watch properly. Now, that sounds easy, but if you take into consideration that tourbillon has about 85 little parts, the total weight is about 0.75 gram.
Wow.
You know, any impact and the mechanism will be destroyed. So you have to be very careful in what you do. That is just one example where we think out of the box. A chronograph with sort of a running minute, which most of them do. You know, the second hand goes and it's catching the minute counter, and then as the second hand goes on, the minute counter slowly moves, which makes it quite difficult. Is it now 2 minutes or 3 minutes or 4 minutes? So hours in most cases have the jumping. So it's the second hand crosses the 12, it jumps by 1 minute. So you're absolutely clear it's 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, or 4 minutes. Not is it 2.5 or is it 3. Just little things that don't mean a lot for people that are not into fine watches, but they mean the world for our customers.
I want to talk about the Odysseus in a little bit, and that particular chronograph, which is fairly unique, but we're not quite there yet. I want to stay with the fact that Lange is famously a German watchmaker. What advantages are there, or disadvantages, for being a German maker in an industry dominated by giant Swiss brands?
Look, I think it's more an advantage than a disadvantage. First of all, I always say there is no Swiss watchmaking and there's no German watchmaking. Because think about it, I mean, you can find Swiss-made watches for €100 and then you find the same for a few million. How can be there any common denominator that covers the Swiss-made from there to there? So same for Germany, you know, you have watches that are very inexpensive, and then you have us with sometimes watches up to 2 million. Obviously, at the top end, it's like a package. It's like a box of chocolate. You know, and our chocolate is craftsmanship, history, and design, and we stay very strict to it.
So some of the bigger brands put out watches in the millions of units. Rolex famously 2 to 3 million. Patek is known to do about 75,000 watches. Lange does a small fraction. Every piece is made by hand, assembled twice.
And not because we can't get it right first time, just to make that pretty.
Assembled first, and then the pieces are taken apart and hand engraved and decorated.
Well, it's you know, because we use the original sources. We believe that that nothing is much better than German silver. You know, that's the perfect material. It's been good for the last 150 years, so we believe in this, and we don't want to coat it, which means over time it will develop a very nice patina. You know, the silver will get that little golden glue, which is beautiful. Problem is, you breathe on it or you touch it, it will look very ugly very soon, and you cannot even clean it. You have to machine it. So that means to maintain aesthetical and technical perfection, you first have to make sure your movement is absolutely up to scratch. All tolerances are there, everything is adjusted, everything works. You go through the test, and if you have assurance, you know, that movement is like it has to be, it goes back to the watchmaker. He or she will disassemble it, clean it, put in the final decoration, because now you know you don't have to adjust anymore, because that's done. You clean it, you oil it, you put the final decoration in case that it goes again through the test, and only then it ends up on a happy wrist.
So inherently, the way you build watches, you're going to be somewhat limited in production. How does that affect the decision-making process of what sort of watches you
Yeah.
make. And I know there are a number of Lange watches that are limited editions of 100 or 50 or even 25.
Yes.
What's the thinking behind that?
Very easy. You know, sometimes, let's take the Minute Repeater Perpetual calendar that we launched this year in April. We know it's going to take us 3 to 4 years to build the 50 watches.
Meaning, from start to finish, you'll do a couple of watches every
Year.
Wow.
You know, so, and we know that. So in today's world, to come up now with this sort of capacity and say we produce 100 means the last one will get the watch in 8 years.
Right. That's a long
That,
time.
that doesn't make any sense. So
Right.
that's, you know, capacity balanced by what we think we can expect from a customer to wait. That usually gives an idea about the limitation.
I was looking at the Lange Perpetual
Yes.
in black,
Yes.
and I stopped by the boutique, and they said figure somewhere between 12 and 15
Yeah.
months before
Yeah.
yours is ready.
Yeah.
So when someone orders a watch,
Yeah.
that goes into the system, and my watch is moving
Yeah.
like it's literally that
Yeah.
specific.
Yeah.
So the Odysseus came out, very unique looking sports watch, then a lightweight titanium version.
No, first the white gold.
White gold.
So it was 24th of October 19 stainless steel, in April 2020 white gold, then titanium,
Then the honey gold.
then the honey gold, no, then the Odysseus chronograph,
The chronograph,
and
which
then
is
the honey gold.
So let's talk about the chronograph. Most people are familiar with chronos because they typically have 2 or 3 subdials.
Yes.
Not with the Odysseus.
Now, it wouldn't work because of the design of the dial. You know, if you
because of
look
the big day and date.
if you take the dial off and you look at the movement, the upside of the movement, you will see it's almost all blocked. So there is no way that you come through. And of course, we also didn't want to increase the size by much. You know, we want to have a wearable watch. So the only way was to utilize the center even more than we usually do. And that's why the chronograph, the second and the minute hand, comes out of the center.
And when you reset the chronograph, it does a little bit of a dance.
Yeah.
That's kind of unusual. I've spoken to a lot of people about this. Nobody has been able to explain that to me. You're my last hope.
It's
Tell
very
us about
easy.
that.
It's very easy because they are geared together. So if you reset it, the minute hand will do as many turns as the second because it's linked.
Right.
And it is so quick that you can't see it. I probably would take a good camera and then you slow it down to see it. But basically, if you have stopped 17 minutes and let's say 30 seconds, what works like this is factually 7 times going around to come to 0.
Why does it do that?
Because it's geared together.
That-
Because it comes out of the
It's
center.
strictly because of its center hand.
That's exactly the point.
That's really fascinating. So a watch like the Zetwerk or the Odysseus, how long is that process when someone first conceives of this? Take us through how long it is from idea till the finished product in the boutique.
Very different. You know, Odysseus, as I said, took us 25 years basically. I think that the real process where we identify that's the face, you know, that looks different to anything else on the market. That will not cannibalize anything within our own range. To launch the watch at the 24th of October in 2019, always good 7 years.
7 years
Yeah,
from start to
yeah,
finish.
yeah,
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So yesterday at the event, 2 new Langes dropped. The Saxonia Thin
Yes.
in black onyx and platinum. Is
Yes,
that right?
true. Onyx, honey gold, and platinum. Yeah.
Really striking dress watches. The Saxonia are sort of, I don't want to call it entry level, but they're
Yeah.
less pricey than some of the other watches.
They are more simple. That's
Simple,
how I saw
okay.
it. You know, for us, it's all about the amount of parts, the years it takes to develop, the hours it takes to assemble. That at the end will define whether it's a complicated watch or I would say a more simple watch. And 2 hands, I think we don't go more simple than 2 hands.
And my first nice dress watch was a rose gold Saxonia mood phase
You see?
over black.
Yes.
And one of the things that people are genuinely surprised is the same level of detail and finishing. What you describe as simple, a lot of people think of in terms of price point. There seems to be no difference.
No. It's, if you look at our process in the manufacturing, we can, it's the people that work on finish, they sometimes have no idea where that part will end up. So they will not say, oh, that goes into grand complication, we do it a little better, or that goes into thin, we do it a little. That's
the same thing regardless, $1 million or entry level.
We do not distinguish in quality at all. It's all the same emphasis on love to detail, craftsmanship, hand polishing, decoration, hand engraving. There is no difference. Double assembly, it's one process. It doesn't matter whether the watch will cost 25,000 euro or 2 million.
And when people say to me, I'm looking for an elegant dress watch, but something that's not too pricey, my answer is always the Saxonia. It's just timeless and so elegant and continues to just, the design gets better over time.
And it's people, you look at it and you see it's an Lange Sohne watch. If you have something complicated like this, you have a lot of hands to work with, you have the sub-dials, you have to push, but you can do a lot. Mm-hmm. But I think one of the biggest challenge for designers is you have two hands to work with and not a lot on the dial. Make it an Lange Sohne.
So the Datograph has been called one of the best chronographs ever designed. What's the core of that watch's appeal? What makes that so special?
I think it's more than just a watch. I'm a watch collector for a long time. I can remember when I opened a newspaper in 94, and I saw the ad with the 4 Lange watches. 99, where most companies around the world were still using somebody else's movement and often the same supplier. Here comes a chronograph, which is one of the crown things in watchmaking, from Germany, in a very unique design with an outsized date. I think it was a wake-up call. And we must not underestimate what that watch started in the watch industry. Because before that, chronograph didn't play a role. There were 2 suppliers and that was it, basically. Mm-hmm. After that, and if you then go and analyze what happened from then to the following 5, 6, 7 years, a lot of chronograph movements came out. So that's why this watch is so important for us, because that was the first real complication other than the tourbillon polymerite that we worked on. And I think that was a wake-up call, and it just gave us a reputation as a solid watchmaker that it's the next level up.
For sure, absolutely the next level up. So you get to spend a lot of time with clients, with customers,
Absolutely.
With collectors. How are you seeing their expectations and desires changing? What does the client base look for from Lange over the next decade?
I think it never changed.
Never changes?
No. First of all, do you have any idea what you will like in 3 years from now on?
Who does?
Exactly. So when people say, oh, you come with a small watch because you follow trend, I say, look, I wish we had known 7 years ago when we started developing the movement. We are not in the fashion industry business. Our processes and the time it takes to come to market is so long that you maybe can anticipate, but maybe you have to stay true to yourself. And I think the one thing which our customers expect from us is authenticity. It has to be an Lange Sohne. And if you had followed the discussion after we launched the Odysseus, because we always said we only precious metal and here come with steel, and later on with titanium. So of course there was a heated debate. Of course there was, and we were aware of it because that is a tension that on purpose we wanted. There were a lot of people that said, it's not for me. I see Lange as dress watch only. There were luckily a lot more people that say, I want that watch desperately where we can produce. So we're fine. However, it just opened up a new chapter in our design language, because now we have a playground to try out things that we would never do with our classical watch families.
And every car enthusiast knows when the Porsche 911 came out, the 356 purists were upset. What are you giving us such a big car? Who needs 6 cylinders?
Absolutely, that's why they built a 912.
Right.
Put the 4-cylinder in. That's exactly what they did. So yeah, that's funny sometimes.
I love this quote of yours, and I'm wondering if it still applies. You said, part of Lange's success is that we're a secret.
Yeah.
So question number 1 is, what makes that an asset? And question number 2 is, look at this event. How much longer is this a secret?
Oh, it is. In the wide world, we are still absolutely unknown, and I think that's a good place to be. There are 3 reasons to it. The one is what we do is very difficult to understand, specifically at the price point that we request for people that are not into fine watchmaking. Why would you spend so much money on a watch when your iPhone gives you the time more precisely? That's the general thinking.
For sure.
The second is, in today's world, you don't want to show off too much. At least
These are very much under the radar, and I am always shocked at people who haven't the slightest idea. When I'm wearing this, as opposed to the better-known
Isn't
brands.
that nice? I mean, that gives you a certain confidence and
Quiet.
a certain. It's you don't need to shout. And on the other hand, and I'm sure you can agree on it, if you see somebody that is also having a Lange Sohne, it's not difficult to get a communication started, isn't it? You
Immediately
have
you have
sort of
something to chat about. If you know, you know. For sure.
And that's why I believe it is so important to remain a secret. I also admit the real challenge is to share the secret with the right crowd of people, because at the end, I'm fine, but whenever we take the new apprenticeship trainees in August, I feel the duty on my shoulders, because now they start a career as watchmaker and they're in for the next 40 years. So we need to make sure that the next generation knows what we do and we stay relevant for this.
So I only have you for a few more minutes. I want to get to my last couple of questions. Speaking of the next generation, how do you appeal to younger buyers, and what sort of approach do you have as all these tastes seem to shift amongst the 20 and 30-something crowd?
Yeah, gladly we don't have a real issue here. We have a surprisingly young customer base. I always say that, and I never understood it, if you're young and you're interested, what speaks against quality, longevity, classless and timeless design, robustness, value creation? It doesn't matter whether you are 100 years old or 10. If you're into that, you're going to like it. The way we connect with these people is different to the way, let's say, I was connected to the watch industry, because as I grew up, it was very difficult to find even specialized magazines for watches. Today you have everything you can think of. I believe we live in absolute paradise times for watch enthusiasts, because never ever in history have there been more watch brands, more information, and easy accessible information. You can do your research without leaving your room. That was impossible in times where I started to get into the hobby.
Although I would tell people, go see the watch, go try it on, make sure.
It's the only thing that matters.
That's right.
It's the only. I just say the natural habitat of a wrist watch is
the wrist.
So forget about looking at something and I like it. That's a good start. But the moment of truth is you grab that watch, you put it around your wrist, You look at yourself and see, is it me or is it not?
So how do you have access to every Lange
Yeah.
watch there is? How do you decide what you're going to grab that day to wear?
This one, because of, a chronograph, we're in a car world, it's the 1815, so that's the more classical line.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a huge fan of chronographs, and it doesn't get any better than a chronograph rattrapant, so, that. And I admit, I think it works very nice with my tan color right now.
So our last question, tell us what's next for Lange Sohne. What surprises are coming up down the road? What should we be looking for?
I think it's always good to look for. But if I now share secrets, there's no surprise. And that's the one thing people love, surprises. But I can share with you as much as this is not the last surprise for this year.
Oh, really? So the Saxonia Thins, not the last surprise of 2025?
That's what I said.
Fantastic. That was my conversation with Wilhelm Schmid, CEO of Lange Sohne at the Newport Audrain Concours d'Elegance. Extra special thanks to the team that came up to Newport to help film this. Alexis Noriega is my video producer. Sebastian Escobar is my videographer. Anna Luke is my producer. Sage Bauman is the head of podcast at Bloomberg. I'm Barry Ritholtz. You've been listening to Masters in Business on Bloomberg Radio.